Well, he is one of our favorite guests, and we appreciate him coming on a couple times a month. It's always informative. I always hog Gerald Celente with my questions, my comments, and his analysis and commentary. But today, starting in the next segment, we're going to take calls for Gerald Celente. I know we have loaded phones, people holding from earlier. If you don't want to talk to Gerald or have a question for him, sayonara, appreciate you calling. If you want to talk to Gerald Celente, 800-259-9231. Your questions, your comments. I want to throw him some curveballs, some friendly curveballs. I mean, I want to bring up some stuff that, well, it isn't out of the mouth of Alex Jones. Yours truly. Trendsresearch.com. Gerald is an American trends forecaster, publisher of the Trends Journal, business consultant and author who makes predictions about the global financial markets and other events of historical importance. Gerald has been described as a political atheist and a citizen of the world. He has appeared on CBS Morning News, Good Morning America, you name it, he's been on it, trendsresearch.com. And there's so much going on in the world. I've got a few questions on the economy and a few questions on what's happening in the Middle East. For Gerald, the big debate is coming up tonight. Total distraction, but we'll be covering some of that tomorrow. But Gerald, I always like to ask you, because we don't script these interviews. We don't script any of them, but a big guest like you, I think occasionally I ought to talk to you behind the scenes and find out, hey, what's coming up today, but you're kind enough just to come on kind of blind. What is first and foremost on your radar screen right now? What is stuck in Gerald Celente's craw right now out of the gates?
The Middle East. And what we're starting to read more and more is how the American government, the CIA, the military, are moving more and more into North Africa. And we believe they're going to use this latest Libyan incident as an excuse to keep expanding America's reach into Northern Africa. And as we get closer to the elections, and this is not a conspiracy theorist, is putting the pieces together, that some kind of a terrorist attack, false flag, real, something along the line of geopolitical. Already, Alex, it's not the economy, stupid, as it was during the Clinton years and other years. This is very, very strange right now.
Everybody, including Dick Cheney, is shifting over towards international crisis. Let me stop you. This is amazing, Gerald. Guess what I was going to bring up to you first? It's right here in front of me. White House, widening covert war in North Africa, Associated Press, State Department, Iran supports al-Qaeda, Taliban, which is asinine. Those two groups are against each other, Shiite and Sunni. That's exactly what I was going to raise first, but I wanted to see what you were going to say. Clearly, the narrative from the left and the right establishment is get a big widening war going. And even ABC News said 2 days ago, look for an October false flag. They said, look for an October surprise. Even when they're telling us that, this is a big deal. What is the cover of my new magazine that has got you in it as well? October Surprise War. I'm not tooting my horn here. That's why I'm so impressed that you're right on the same page, even though we didn't talk before the show. Go ahead, Gerald.
No, we haven't talked at all. And pick up today's toilet paper of record, the New York Times. Look at the front page. I mean, you can see how they're throwing it out at us. They're blaming. And how many people got killed in Iraq this past month? It's like a record in the last 2 years. And who are they blaming? They're blaming Iran. Could you imagine the Americans and their coalition of the willing that have destroyed a country on the false reasons? There were no weapons of mass destruction and ties to al-Qaeda, killed an estimated 1 million people, destroyed the entire nation, polluted, depleted uranium, and what do we kill? How many of our troops are dead? 5,000 or so? Lives ruined, and they're blaming Iran. This is right in the front page of the toilet paper of record. And then you keep putting all the pieces together. So as I mentioned, here we are at a time, again, look at the data coming in. 30% of the jobs that were created in this so-called recovery over in August are low-paying, jobs in fast food and quick food restaurants. So here the economy should be number one issue, and neither of the candidates are really discussing it. And then over on the flank, we still keep hearing from Israel and whether or not they're going to bomb Iran after the election, before the election. Oh, and this is very important. Romney has to win Florida. 2 weeks ago, a week ago, Obama had a 4 to 5 point lead. Now they're back down to neck and neck. And there's a very heavy Jewish influence vote in Florida. How is Obama going to play the Florida card, the Netanyahu card, the Israeli card? Because Florida is key. And you can see how key Florida was when Gore ran against Bush in 2000. He was losing Ohio. And this is one of the swing states that Romney is now taking a bad loss in. That means what Gore did was he dumped his money near the end of the election into Florida. And remember, he almost won the hanging chads. Whether or not he won or not is up in the air. So what I'm saying is the focus is on Florida. The focus is going to be, to me, the Middle East.
I absolutely agree with you, and my next issue in the stack is the big GMO battle going on. I wanted to get your take. It's just amazing how many times I've made a joke, not really a joke, around the office here on the nightly news and the show. I go, watch, I'm going to have this first, and then when I get Gerald on, watch, he'll bring this up first. Because it's not even always whatever they've got in the news. You're just always honed right in on what I at least think is the trend. I mean, I wrote this about a week and a half ago when we went to print, October surprise war. And then this week, ABC News comes out and mirrors our article in InfoWars magazine and says October surprise, and that both parties are trying to get one going, which is exactly what we say in here. I say whatever the establishment thinks is the best puppet, because they still haven't decided completely, they're going to give them the false flag. And it's so incredible to see the West put al-Qaeda in Libya, Syria, and Iran to attack those countries and to suicide bomb, and then to simultaneously say today that Iran is running suicide bombers when the suicide bombers are out of Saudi Arabia and have been landed by NATO and are blowing up shopping malls and ancient churches. I mean, we're talking UNESCO, UN World Heritage Sites. They go in and tell fathers, we're going to kill your family if you don't car bomb something. This is admitted, and the New York Times acts like they're heroes. I mean, I've entered a twilight zone, Gerald, where the government publicly runs al-Qaeda, but says they've got to grope my wife and children because of al-Qaeda. They've got to set up highway checkpoints because of al-Qaeda. They've got to watch my bank account because of al-Qaeda. They've got to take all my liberties and have the NSA spy on me because of al-Qaeda. And then they're running al-Qaeda everywhere. And then they think I'm so dumb, they say we've got to attack Iran. They run al-Qaeda. I mean, this is unbelievable, Gerald.
We have psychopaths in charge. You've seen that video, I'm sure, floating around the internet with James Baker and Hillary Clinton talking about Iran. And she goes hysterically laughing about, what we're going to do and how we have to do this and we have to do that. You watch the behavior of these people and you have to ask, what planet are they on? And so what we're looking at, Alex, again, and I cannot emphasize this enough, because in all our lives, every one of us that's working for a living, and the people that we know, so many of them, they're losing their homes. People are having difficulty at making ends meet. Up here in Kingston, uptown Kingston, every night, every day, I see people going through the trash barrels outside. People with carts picking up empty bottles. I've never seen this before. And so the economy should be the number one issue that confronts us all on an everyday level. It really does a lot to think about how am I going to get food in my mouth, clothes on my back, and whether or not they're going to take my home away from me. And by the way, just to interject into whether or not they're going to take my home away from me, look what's going on with all the elderly people that can no longer afford to pay these exorbitant property taxes, these exorbitant school taxes, and they're losing their homes. And so when we're looking at, and then of course there's that college debt of over $1 trillion. And what are we talking about? Al-Qaeda, Homeland Security. Oh, did you see that latest study that came out? The billions of dollars missing that was supposed to go into Homeland Security so they could find us terrorists out there in the United States, and what a complete waste.
They didn't find one terrorist. Instead, they watched mainline political groups, including church bake sales, because that's really who the enemy is. It's those that are normal. It's the Amish. They literally put the Amish in the database and have Homeland Security watching them under the Rural Affairs Council, run by who? The Department of Defense, because everybody knows the Pentagon's got to fight them Amish who haven't been violent in 400 years.
Yeah. Again, as I've said, I am convinced at this point that it's the anti-human race in charge. These people are anathema to everything that is fine within the human race. Everything they do, they destroy it. You were talking about GMO food.
Stay there, sir. I want you to cover that when we get back, and then right to phone calls with the one, the only Gerald Celente. My favorite guest, probably. I know it's my mother's. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Alex Jones here with a very important announcement for truth seekers. We've carried a lot of amazing films and books over the years on the online video bookstore at Infowars.com. And out of all the titles we've carried, one stands out because it is just so chillingly convincing. And that's Dreams from My Real Father by Joel Gilbert, available at Infowars.com. This film exposes the fraud that Obama is like nothing I've seen. If you want to know who Obama's real daddy is, this is the film for you. Don't forget, your purchase supports our broadcast and our growing media network. You'll also find at InfoWarsShop.com None Dare Call a Conspiracy by Gary Allen, the book that woke me up. We're also carrying Behind the Green Mask, You in Agenda 21 by Rosa Corey. This book is coffin nails to the globalist takeover. The Greater Good, the most professional and up-to-date film I've ever seen exposing the scourge that is vaccines. These titles and a lot more are all available at InfoWarsShop.com. Mass flu vaccination drill also is practice for an emergency. This is out of the PJ Star newspaper, and this is for a forced inoculation drill. Also, printable gun revolution moving forward despite corporate Second Amendment fears. After our own Adon Salazar wrote an article last week about an Austin man who got a high-tech 3D printer and was trying to make a gun with it. The manufacturer was basically contacted by the ATF and came and grabbed the printer back. So they're watching everything we do. We're so evil, trying to invent things. You don't do that in America. You don't invent things. Gerald Celente, before we go to calls, you were getting into the fact that how dare Americans want to label the GMOs. And now they're pulling videos online on YouTube critical of Whole Foods, who's pretty much bringing in a whole bunch of GMO and working with Monsanto.
And it's even bigger than that. Forget about the labeling. How could they let this even happen? How could they keep poisoning us like this? By the way, Alex, I have an honorary doctorate from the National University of Health Sciences for my work that I've done over the years in complementary medicine. So I've been familiar with this kind of movement, when it really started to take hold in the late 70s. And that the government in this country allows what other governments won't allow, to me, is really the issue. But it's not really the government allowing anything. It's called fascism, the merger of state and corporate powers. I say this over and over again. They don't run the government. We the people have nothing to say. It's the corporations that are running the show. By the way, I also used to be, in my earlier career, when they were brand new, I used to put together the political action committees in D.C. for the chemical industry. That's right. Roman Haas, DuPont, Union Carbide, Lonza. I know how it's done. So what people think is out there, a governmental system that is watching them in any way for a positive development, they're kids. They've been they're still stuck, you know, in 8th grade social science class. The government is totally run by the major corporations. It's a takeover. Big agriculture, the military industrial complex, the prison industrial complex, as I said, the agricultural, pharmaceutical, retail, communications. Very few control everything. So the issue isn't, to me, whether or not they should be labeling genetically modified foods. The issue is, what the hell are they doing here in the first place?
No, I agree with you, and that's how pathetic it is, that how dare us even want to know if milk came from a cow that had human genes in its milk-producing glands, its udders. How dare us want to know if salmon has an insect gene injected into us? How dare us, when all the studies are coming out about the cancer and infertility? Look, I agree they're fascists, but it's worse. They're eugenicists, Gerald, and I know you've looked into this. They want to reduce population. This is a covert takeover operation. Briefly, as we go to break and come back with calls, what's your take on the overall agenda of how they actually enjoy killing us?
As I said, they are the anti-human race. We just sent you that video link that I was talking about with Hillary Clinton. You watch the behavior of these people. They're not people that we would never associate with. They're the anti-human race. Look at by their deeds you shall know them. They're putting poisons in the air, poisons in our food. They send our people to go get killed and kill others. They are out of their minds. Look what's going on tonight. You're going to see another episode of the presidential reality show, and people are fighting among each other to which lesser of two evils is the one that they're going to support.
Yeah, I love the new Trends cover that's got Obama as the devil and Romney as the devil. It's a two-headed, one-bodied monster. Very, very well done by your amazing graphics person. Oh,
Anthony Frida, he is terrific.
All right, we're going to, in fact, I want to use that graphic if I can in the next issue of the magazine. That is unbelievable. And link over to trendsresearch.com. I promise, folks, I'm not going to hog him anymore. We're going to go to break, come back with your calls for Gerald Celente, and then I've got a few other items I want to mention. But by the way, the Health Emergency States Act and all these other programs, they are preparing for forced inoculations. We've got an article about that as well. It just went up at Infowars.com. Do you understand how dark it is? How far down the line we are? How late it is? We've all seen that clip of Hillary Clinton over a year ago, or a little less than a year ago. The bombardment started about a year and a half ago, but I guess it was 7, 8, 9 months ago, saying that she came to Libya and that they saw Gaddafi die. And she laughed about it. Ha, ha, ha. This is a woman never fought a day in her life. She always uses others to do it. And then she makes a joke about somebody being drug around and killed, but then would make fun of other people that did similar things. So if somebody else drug and killed some Western globalist leader, it would be very solemn and barbarous and evil. But then, ha, 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 I came, I saw, he died. Ha, ha, like she's Julius Caesar. I came, I saw, I conquered. And they always make jokes about this. Richard Pearl was in the New York Times, came over to a group of good-looking women reporters at a cocktail party 6, 7 years ago. The Prince of Darkness at the Pentagon, as he's known, part of the Pentagon Special Plans Office, making up the WMD lies, which are admitted lies. And he came over and he said, I kill lots of people. I order this war, and I kill lots of people. I'm very powerful. And the women were all creeped out and walked off. I mean, you're talking about like a 600-pound self-propelled stomach with giant black circles around his eyes. I mean, I'm not saying I'm the best-looking guy in the world either, but he looks like the Penguin or something. And this is what they think is like sexy. You know, I control troops that kill people. And you watch these people. I've been around globalists before at events, and they are gibbering, weird, neurotic, crazy people that are like demons running around with the levers of power, just flipping them because they can. They get off on the GMO hurting you. They get off on the vaccines. It's all a big joke to them. And we just bow down to these crazy pimps. If you don't see the video of her as a radio listener, she smiles like a demon, like a jack-o'-lantern, and goes, ha, 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 ha. When I was in Bohemian Grove, these billionaires would get together, and that's all you heard was them just going, ha, 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 and Jack Bauer torturing people's kids to make them answer questions. It's this evil fantasy, and the federal guards raping children in front of their parents, and that's in the Army's report. I mean, these are people that get off on all this and really get off on death and destruction. And they've got a covert war going, blowing up buildings, blowing up bases, suicide bombers where they threaten to kill their families. And the New York Times ran with that. Was like, look at these heroes, how they're suicide bombing. I mean, this is so sick. Gerald, Celente, we're going to calls, but that's what you're talking about right there. Hillary acting like a demon.
Yeah, and listen to Baker, what we're going to do. I don't think any of these, I don't think Baker could, he'd probably have trouble walking upstairs. And what we're going to do? What do you mean we? You mean send other people to get killed for your psycho trip? And I mean, Lady Macbeth, Hillary, she outshines Lady Macbeth 1,000 to 1. It's not even close. I'm telling you, Alex, it's as though an anti-human race is running the globe. Even
Hitler and Mussolini, who were incredibly egomaniacs, out of control, narcissists, would not get up on newsreels and go, ha, 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 about attacking Russia. They'd be like, this is terrible, but we have to invade. This is, we have to launch Barbarossa. We did this because they're going to invade us, and it's very grim. But I mean, nowadays, it's just like, ha, 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 ha. I mean, it's crazy.
It's crazy. One of the staff over here, our man behind the camera, Lennox Roscoe Ryan III, he said in the break, he said, listening to this is like listening to a science fiction movie. He says, I feel like I'm trapped in a 50s science fiction movie. I cannot believe this is actually happening.
Have you seen the clip of where she said, I came, I saw, he died?
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, in this upcoming edition of the Trends Journal, we make reference to that clip and have the link there. Yeah, I came, and she laughs.
But she laughs really demonic, like a witch out of a movie. I mean, you don't talk about World War III like it's fun. Huh?
I'm sorry, what?
No, I mean, these are like malevolent maniacs out of a movie.
Oh, I know. And that's what I said. Lady Macbeth, compared to Hillary Clinton, I mean, she was Joan of Arc compared to this one. And it's right there in front of us. And what is it that people keep supporting them? And they give their lives up for them, and they will fight among each other to defend them and say, my freak is better than your freak.
Well said, Gerald. Let's go to phone calls as promised. Let's go to Steve in Chicago, listening on one of our newest affiliates, 1530 WCKG, covering Chicago. Welcome, Steve. You're on the air.
Thanks for having me, the murder capital of the world. Isn't that something to be proud of?
Hey, your mayor said he wants to ask the public what they can do to stop the gun violence. Well, legalize guns so people can protect themselves, so all the criminals don't move there to feed off the public, and stop letting the government, the Sinaloa cartel, which has been caught shipping drugs in for the CIA, stop letting them ship in their drugs. Decriminalize drugs. In fact, I'm interrupting you. What's your question for Gerald? Then I'm going to ask Gerald how he would try to fix Chicago. Maybe kick the mafia out that runs it? Sorry, go ahead.
Actually, my call was about the bond market. I used to trade in the bond pits in Chicago for years, and I understand the importance behind the way the government is funded and how the Treasury yields are so low. Right now, the last time I checked, a 10-year Treasury is yielding about 1.63%, and right now, when we sell our bonds, at that rate, it's about $100 billion a year in funding costs and interest for the government. Now, if interest rates were just to go back to a normal rate, which are historically average of, 5%, you're looking at around, I don't know exact numbers, but it's around $1 trillion a year in, being able to just to fund the interest payments. Now, I think that's the one canary in the coal mine that, sure, the dollar index could go down. It's trading around 79, 80, something like that right now. the dollar index goes down to 70 and breaks new lows of 65, it's going to cause some problems. But until the Treasury market bubble is bursted, I don't see economically the panic in the United States like we've seen Treasuries go over 7% in Spain.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is that as the world melts down, people will go to the last island, even if it's sinking. It's sinking the slowest. That's the United States, and that will prop things up. But if you look at the overall scale, everything is sinking. So, it's kind of like being on a house as a tsunami comes. You're the highest house, but you're just going to get to have the view of it overtaking the other homes. I mean, do you have a question for Gerald? Or
when does that bubble pop? Because I think that is the most important thing is the Treasury market. When that market starts to sell off, nothing sells off like that market, and people will panic when interest rates start to rise. And I'm just wondering when he thinks that's going to take place.
Gerald, go ahead and take that question.
From the Financial Times, Bernanke rejects rate rise talk. So what they're going to do is they're going to continue to keep interest rates around the world, everybody's lowering them, as low as possible. And what this is doing is robbing the people of their future. Because now you don't save any money. You save, what do you get? If you have $100,000, they'll give you 1%. So they're going to continue to do this as long as they can. And so he's 100% right. Once these rates go up, but here's what I believe. The rates will go up. But our mind won't be on rates. It'll be on war. I keep saying this over and over again. The first great war of the 21st century has begun. There's a war in Yemen, a war in Bahrain, a war in Libya. There's wars in Egypt. I mean, the people are taking to the streets, in Tunisia, in Syria. Look at the millions of people, millions and millions of people in the streets of Spain, in Portugal,
exactly.
In Greece.
All right, let's go to the next caller, but I really just wanted to say this to you, Gerald, and I appreciate your fine point and what you laid out. You're spot on, sir. Good to talk to people that are so informed, in some cases more than I am when it comes to bonds. It's such a wide spectrum of information. Gerald, constantly, I see the meme out there that Gerald Celente is a fear porn, Alex Jones is a fear porn. There's no war. There's no depression. I mean, they're launching giant covert wars everywhere. The gas is going up. The dollar's going down. Europe literally has fires and riots. Major U.S. cities already have it. And then we see all this government preparation. They're running TV ads saying prepare for the zombie apocalypse as an archetype of the welfare people, going crazy. So they're trying to tell everybody everything's fine when the big war has already started. The collapse has already begun, but we can't ever respond to it because the general public still doesn't even know it's already started.
I know. Are we on, Alex?
Yes, your Skype is cutting out a little bit. We'll reconnect during the break. Yes, go ahead, Gerald.
Yeah, no, the whole thing is under collapse. And they don't want to admit it, and they're looking at all these events as one-offs. When you put them all together, and this is why I'm going back to the caller about rates. They're going to keep rates low. They have to. China right now, they're dumping in record amount of stimulus. Governments around the world are cutting interest rates. They need to keep pumping. Look at the car numbers coming out, car sales. They're offering loans for nothing, virtually. No interest rate loans, and they'll give them to anybody. It's kind of a new housing bubble, but in the car market. So what's going to happen, rates will come up, but only when our mind is off the economy.
Sure.
And our mind is on war.
Sure, and more they're saying the war is next year, but now ABC News says there could be a false flag themselves, but then I'm kooky because I said it before them. I'm bad because I'm right, and so are you. Let's talk to Jack in Florida, and then we'll talk to others. Jack, you're on the air with Gerald Celente.
Hey, what's going on, Alex?
Worldwide broadcaster.
I've been listening to your show for about 15 years, I guess. Years. First time calling in. I'm glad you guys are talking about the GMO stuff because that's exactly why I called even before Gerald came on. I wanted to get Gerald's take and your take on this. I have a theory I've been floating around, friends of mine, been thinking about this stuff for a while now. What about if this whole thing is kind of like the first Batman film with Jack Nicholson in it? Remember when the newscasters are talking about combinations of cosmetics, that it doesn't affect you unless you do certain things like...
No. It's binary weapons, and then Christopher Walken says, just like Gulf of Tonkin, we're staging the terror attack, and I've used that clip before to illustrate this. Yes. No, they are. They're binary weapons, and I've got all these globalists bragging in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and now that, oh, we ought to put stuff in the food to sterilize people. Well, they are. They are doing it. Gerald Celente, thank you for the call. Your take on that.
Look what they did with women for all these years. And again, I was involved in this when it was happening, saying how deadly it was. Hey, ladies, keep pumping in that estrogen. Remember that one? They don't talk about that anymore. For years and years and years, they were telling women to keep taking estrogen. It will, it'll put a pause on menopause. It'll build your hormone, and it'll tell you what else it'll do.
We're going to reconnect with Gerald Celente.
Cancer. And they kept dumping this stuff into it.
Amazing, Gerald. Your Skype is cutting out. It's usually crystal clear. We're going to try to reconnect during the break here in a few minutes, but stay there for now. Let's go to Zach in North Carolina. You're on the air for our guest. Go ahead, Zach, your question.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, my question is for Mr. Celente. I was just wondering, in the last year, I started to wake up, with the GMO and the aspartame, and my family history is really patriotic. I come from a real patriotic family, but my family hasn't completely woken up yet.
Well, that's because it's patriotic to do what you're told and die nowadays. Asking questions, the Pentagon's own reports out, Wired Magazine's reporting, is terrorism. In America, you submit to death.
Yeah, well, the soft kill, I've been studying.
Sure, sure. So what's your question for Gerald? What's your question?
My question is, what could I do? Because I've showed videos to my dad about like Ted Gunderson, the retired FBI agent, coming out and about how 9/11 was staged and everything. The Federal Reserve, I'm starting to wake people up with the Federal Reserve, and some people are like...
Well, you could show your dad the video I did last hour, that part of the radio show where I showed mainstream news where the elites, Obama, Romney, the Chinese elite, none of them will eat GMO, but they want to force us to eat it, and then all the big studies where it causes giant tumors. I appreciate your call. Look, when people won't listen to you, move on. Move on to those that can be saved. Gerald, what do you say?
Well, on the food issue, I've been talking about whole health healing for a long time. And you know how I feel about this whole issue. Nothing is going to change until the individuals change. And that means people have to get strong physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And that's not John.
All right, Gerald, unfortunately, your Skype's not working. We'll do a little bit of overdrive. Really wanted to take calls. Alex Jones here with a message to fellow freedom lovers. The prognosis for the entire planetary economic system runs from bad to worse. The globalist model is to shut down societies and starve patriots out until they acquiesce to the global takeover. That's why we've assembled the most vital and important preparedness items at InfoWarsShop.com. These are items that I did research on, that I personally use. We've got the Life Straw, so you can turn fetid water into safe water anywhere you go. The K-Tor hand crank generator to charge up key equipment during power outages or out in the field. Strategic Relocation, 3rd edition by Joel Skousen. When Disaster Strikes by Matthew Stein. ThyroSafe, used by Homeland Security to protect yourself during any radiological event. Hand crank shortwave AM/FM radios. Everything that we've researched and found to be the best is available at InfoWarsShop.com, and your purchase makes our InfoWar possible. We're getting prepared. Are you? InfoWarsShop.com. Gerald, you were cutting out a bit, but what do you say to people whose families laugh at them and say there's no tyranny going on? I would feel sorry for that family. I would try to keep giving them information like the InfoWars magazine or the Trends Journal. Something like that, really well written with graphics and documentation to give them facts. But after that, I would just move on. I wouldn't plead with them because there's a lot of people who want to be helped and who want to be awakened. What do you say to that?
Well, they are being awakened. And a lot of people are. And as you said, you just move on. Oh, and by the way, to get rid of your allergy, cut out wheat and dairy if you haven't already. And guarantee it'll go away.
Sure, that's a big part of it. Yeah, the gluten. You're absolutely.
You got to cut out wheat and dairy. You cut it out for about 3 weeks, and you'll see all your symptoms will leave. And then you can get back on it. You don't have to get rid of it for the rest of your life. I used to have those allergies too. Anyway, with the other issue is that people don't want to face the reality. Everything they believed in is a lie, and they can't face up to it. It's like Obama apologists. You show them one after another how Obama, I'm going to close Guantanamo Bay. I'm going to do away with torture, but we'll move them overseas. I'm going to, I got it. We're going to repeal the Patriot Act and restore habeas corpus rights. You go one after another on the Obama.
I'm not going to hire lobbyists. I'm not going to have banker bailouts. I'm not going to sign the NDAA when he wrote it. I mean, it's all about betrayal for a nation of suckers. Let's go to another call. MJ in Illinois, also listening on 1530 at WCKG. A lot of callers getting through from that station. You're on the air, MJ.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. My question is, to my understanding, according to the Dodd-Frank bill, as of January 1st, our bank deposits will no longer be protected by the FDIC. So what way can we protect what we do have in the banks? I know we can't take everything out, but I'm just trying to find what's the solution around this new law.
Well, they're already going to devalue it anyways. Gerald, your comments on that?
Well, you keep as little in as you can into the banks. Why would you keep your money in there anyway when they're not giving you any interest? So I just try to keep enough in there to cover my expenses. Why should I let them use my money? And this whole mentality, again, there's a story, in the Financial Times about this lowering of interest rates. And you know what the banks are doing? Everybody's refinancing their homes. And the interest rate for refinance is probably about 3.4%. But you know what? It should be a lot lower considering where the Fed rates are. So what they're doing is not only are they taking your money and using it, but they're charging you more to get it when they're making more money with the lower interest rates. So again, it goes back to why should you trust them at all? And that was the lesson I learned with MF Global when they went into my segregated account, robbed my money, and you never heard any problems.
And he got caught lying, and the court said, hey, you're allowed to lie to Congress and steal money.
That's it. And nobody brought Corzine up on charges. They didn't even question.
No, he wasn't an old Amish man selling milk to a neighbor or a Girl Scout selling cookies who needs to be arrested. He was, he's a good global. Well, he's a member of the club, as you say, a member of the New World Order Mafia. Thank you so much for your call, MJ. Anything else? Okay. MJ's gone. We're going to go to break here and do a little bit more with Gerald. Try to go to Martino's in Lithuania. I didn't even notice that somebody was calling from Lithuania. And then a few other callers with Gerald Celente. Again, I'm Alex Jones of Infowars.com.
Everything we said came true. Everything we've done's been right.
Martino's in Lithuania, you're on the air with Gerald Celente. I apologize. I would have skipped ahead to you if I'd have noticed you were there. You're on the air. Your question.
Hello, Alex, Gerald. I have 6 important questions. Will China attack Singapore if World War III happens? How attack will affect economy and currency of Singapore? What proof do you give these 3?
Sure. When you call it World War III or the next Great War is what Gerald calls it, how will it affect the economy? How will it affect the economy of Singapore? Gerald Celente.
Just to make that note, Singapore is becoming the gold center of the world. They just lowered all their taxes on buying gold, and they're trying to get a lot of people there to store it. I don't like it because, a little bit too Chinese for me. But on the broader issue, this is not, how they say, Alex, that generals keep fighting the last war? This war is going to be very different. It's going to be weapons of mass destruction, but suitcase size.
Yeah, why are the elites running to Singapore, the Cook Islands, you name it? I mean, the elite is running. They've done a great job destroying things.
Yeah, So this is going to bring down the entire global economy. And by the way, you see what's going on. Again, as I keep putting all the pieces together.
Singapore wants gold in case everything collapses. They're going to confiscate it and use that gold, I'm just hypothetically saying this, to be able to purchase emergency goods for an island. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm asking you that.
Well, what I don't like about Singapore so much is its relationship with China. I've been to Singapore. You know, it's a branch of China in a lot of ways. And I wouldn't put, only speaking for myself, I don't give financial advice. But so Singapore, however, as the global economy, particularly in the West, continues to decline, it's going to hit all over the world. If Europe and the United States are the biggest buyers of Chinese and Asian goods, they're not buying. The unemployment rate now in Europe is officially at 11.4%.
More like 25.
Exactly. And the same thing, what I hear, about 22. So you're seeing.
But here's my question. Why are the elite running to Singapore? That sounds like it's a good place.
I don't think that they're running there because, you know, they don't know either. And they're concerned about their money. And now, you know, because Switzerland sold out, you know, I used to call them, you know, the money cockroaches of the world, but now they're bending over, so they don't have a lot of places to put the money. So Singapore is becoming...
That's right. The mega government class and the mega corporations are exempt from taxes. Even the rich themselves aren't exempt from what they've created.
Exactly. So the whole system is collapsing. And to go back to the question, the war has begun. And what they're going to do, all of a sudden you're going to hear about weapons of mass destruction, new suitcase-sized nukes, on and on, poisoning of water supplies, you name it. It's going to start happening more and more. And the more it happens, the more they clamp down on us, the more they clamp down on us.
Very well said. I'm sorry to all the other callers. I tried to get to as many as we could. I promise when we get Gerald back again in the future, we'll open the phones up again. Gerald, we got 30 seconds. What else are you looking at?
Well, gold prices. And, you know, I've been talking about that, you know, I've been naming the breakout points as I've been on your show. And when it was down about 1670, I said I was buying again back in the market. And as we're speaking now, it's 1770 an ounce. My belief is if it closes out this week above $1,780 an ounce, get ready for the next gold bull run. It goes to 2,000 and above.
Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.